What's up, everybody? Tread West Podcast back with another episode. So, drinking a couple brewskis this week. Get you some real American beer, brother. Let me see if I can get this on the camera. This is I'm not sponsored or anything, but hey, Hulk Hogan, if you want to reach out, I've been drinking your beer a lot lately. The can looks pretty cool. That's why I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy this. I was surprised to find it at my local liquor store, uh, in a rural Midwestern town. But it's basically an overpriced Bud Light, if I'm being honest, and I'm not a Bud Light guy, but it's kind of for the memes. I probably should have put my American flag cowboy hat on for it, but get you a real American beer, brother. Um, so we're just gonna take a chill, drink some brews, and this week we're gonna talk about maybe some wealth distributions between the generations because I'm a millennial. All my life growing up, it's popular for the millennials to hate on boomers, hate on boomers, hate on boomers. And some of the criticisms is valid, but other criticisms, it's like just cope and excuses because you made bad choices. Now, some of those bad choices were probably because your parents, boomers, recommended them to you, aka going to tens of thousands of dollars in college debt, which I'm against. But we'll talk about that a little bit. But let's cover some basics. If you're watching, tuning in, grab yourself an adult beverage. All right. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Let's relax. Let's grab a brew, couple brewskis. I got another one on reserve here. So I'll just go over some basic AI stuff. Then we'll read, obviously, let me preface this before we even go into this. Obviously, the boomers are older. So they're older. They've lived longer. They've worked, built up a retirement. Sorry, dogs in the background. Naturally, because they're older and they've had time to build wealth, they're going to hold more of the wealth. That said, if you look at, there's a couple charts out there. If you look at how much wealth boomers had by age 30 compared to millennials by age 30, the numbers are pretty drastic as well. So, baby boomers, 1946 to 1964, currently hold the largest share of total wealth, owning over 50%. The silent generation, born before 46, hold a smaller but significant still, 13%. Gen X, 1965 to 1980, they have a share of 25.8%. And millennials, born 1981 to 1996, that's where I fall in, hold the smallest share at 9.4. So that is a very small amount. And then if you look at Gen Z, this doesn't even mention the Gen Z numbers. They barely have anything. So I do feel for people, but Gen Z is pretty young. They haven't had a chance to really, build themselves. And let's just talk about this. Like most people, when you're building yourself up, and this is a lot of the red pill community talks about this. I might go off on tangents here because I'm really into this type of stuff. There's a talk about you know, women, when should you get in relationship? You should, start young, but then men not held to the same standard. Well, it's because we find different things attractive. Men tend to like younger women. They're about physical beauty. Women tend to like a guy who can provide, has himself put together. And that takes time to build for a guy. Usually men aren't hitting their financial stride until they're in their 30s. And then they're peaking in their 40s financially. So it would make sense. That's why it makes sense that the older people obviously have more wealth. They've had time to build it. But that said, I'm not blind to, the economic struggles. Cost of living skyrocketing, interest rates aren't very friendly. Hopefully, the Fed will be lowering interest rates sometime this year. I was hoping this month, and June at the latest, just so it helps out my investments. But I don't know. You got Trump getting in arguments with the Fed, Powell, trying to pressure him to lower the interest rates because inflation's down. So that's just some basics that obviously they hold more wealth. And let's share screen here. Read this article. I haven't read this ahead of time, but wealth distribution by generation. Over the past 30 years, wealth in the United States has become increasingly the province of older generations. Approximately 73% of all the wealth in the U.S. is currently owned by Americans over the age of 55. Again, common sense would reason that's understandable because they've had time to work their whole life in a career. But also, they had it a little easier when it comes to certain things as well. Stuff didn't cost as much. Inflation wasn't crazy. But actually, I'll talk about that a little later. Interest rates. When it comes to like owning a home, interest rates are big. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But all right, 73% of the wealth is owned by people over 55, with the most concentrated among the baby boomer generation. This has reshaped spending power, with older households having greater flexibility and financial infrastructure than their children, while younger households must dedicate an even greater share of their money to non discretionary spending like housing. So, according to the Federal Reserve, Americans hold about 151.68 trillion in total wealth. This is measured as market value. Wide variety of asset classes, including real estate, durable goods, retirement portfolios and benefits, financial securities, private businesses. Um, let's see, distribution by age. Under 40, 9.9 trillion, 6.5% of total wealth. The 40 to 54 age range, 20% of total wealth. 55 to 69 age range, 42.3% of wealth. And the 70 plus range of age, 30% of total wealth. So I kind of covered that already in the basics. Millennials and Gen Z. Oh, millennials and Gen Z, 9% of total wealth. Gen X, 25%. Baby boomers, 51%. Silent and earlier generation, 13%. Now, yeah, they're older here, but they have less because, not to be crass, they're old. A lot of them have died. So there's not as many of them. And, baby boomers, like I said, they've been working their whole life. They have retirements. They had a career. And they probably got passed on inheritance from their previous generation as well. So that's all I'll probably read on this. And then we'll just talk a little bit about this. So let's start with the house problem. The housing market, I agree. Inevitably, I think it's going to crash because there's no way once the baby boomers are gone that a lot of millennials and Gen Z are going to be able to afford the house prices given what they currently are and if they just keep going up. That said, interest rates play a big role in this. That's what I learned when I was finally going through the step to buying a house. So, the common trope, and this was happening even back when the interest rates were low. I was seeing millennials that I knew just hating on the boomers, like, oh, you guys could buy a house for $40,000, $80,000, and look what we're paying. Now, the reason I didn't really care for that argument, which had I not gone through the home loan process myself, I probably wouldn't have realized it. So if you're talking on the subject, please have actually talked to a mortgage company and seen what your monthly payments would be when buying a home loan, because I bought mine at the perfect time, 2020. Interest rates were super low. Granted, stuff was flying off the market. So like I was getting I was losing faith and I was about to just like grab the first thing I could get. And I'm glad I was a little patient and waited because I ended up with the perfect house that I hope to live, given barring no like severe circumstances where I would have to move. I hope to make this my home um, for my future children. I got a house on 32 acres, got some chickens. Hopefully, I'll add to that and maybe do some small homestead farming. I'm trying to slowly build up to be not so reliant on stores and the grid. But it's a slow process. And I get it. I bought at the perfect time, but there were plenty of millennials, people that could have been taken advantage as well. And I think a lot of people just didn't understand because I'll give you my. So initially, a few years before I bought my house, I wanted to try to buy a house down at the lake close to my parents. I was trying to buy a house that was like only $100,000. I had a good amount of money saved up, but I didn't have any credit because I was always taught, don't get a credit card. You don't want to rack up debt. But the way our system is, you can't get approved for any loans if you don't have credit. So I got a credit card, a CD that had like a $500 limit. And over the next couple years, I just started using that credit card for gas. And that's all I would use it for. And I would have it, it was a credit card with my banking company, and I had it set up to automatically pay off in full come the end of that statement, end of that month. So I wasn't paying a bunch of interest. I was only buying gas, and it wasn't anything that my checking account couldn't automatically just pay off right away. So after like 2 years of doing that, my credit score was pretty high. And it really bothered me though because, you know, my peers had all gone to college, gotten debt, but they had credit and they were getting approved for stuff and I wasn't able to. And it really bothered me because I was like, you can see how much is in my bank account. Like I was good, I was saved, and I can't get approved for a loan unless my parents co-sign for me. Like so I agree the system's a bit effed up, but I'll also say about us millennials and younger generations. We spend a bunch of money on shit we don't need. My parents were very stringent. I was not just always given stuff. I wanted to go to the grocery store. Hey, can I get a bag of Doritos? I want a bag of chips. Nowadays, oh yeah, sure, honey, they'll just do it. You know what my parents used to say? No, those aren't on sale. We're not getting them. And we go to like Schnucks. I'm originally from St. Louis. Schnucks is a grocery store. Sometimes they did like 10 for 10 on like the rice-a-ronis and stuff like that. My parents would like really only buy stuff when it was like 10 for 10, stuff on sale. Didn't buy us a bunch of junk food. If I wanted a bag of chips, it had to be on sale. Um, they didn't have a cell phone. Um, I didn't get a cell phone until I was like a junior in high school, and that was only because I had a family member who worked for a cell phone company, and I just went to my family member and asked to get on a plan, and I started making the payments myself because my parents weren't going to pay for me to have a cell phone. So they were very. My point of this is the previous generation was very stringent with their money in most cases. They didn't just waste it on unnecessary things. Stuff that our generation tends to think we need, but they're not needs, they're luxury items. Internet, I get it. It's a little difficult to do certain things without internet, but you can buy the cheapest internet. You don't need to have cable TV. You don't need to have all these Netflix and all these, subscriptions. You don't need to have your $5 plus Starbucks every day. That's another thing millennials hate on boomers for because boomers will say, well, if you weren't buying that expensive Starbucks and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, maybe you'd have some money for a house. There is some truth to that. But it's a little, hyperbolic. But take it from somebody who buys a lot of Bang energy drinks. There was a time um, I was drinking 2 to 3 energy drinks a day, and I was getting them cheap on a military base, tax-free, but there's people out there that are paying, so I was getting them for, like, maybe $2 each, but that's still, if I drink 3, $6 a day. You add that up if you're doing it every day, that adds up over time. You're talking a couple $1,000s a year potentially. So yes, over time it does add up. Let's say you're spending $2,000 on, coffee slash energy drinks slash, knickknacks, alcohol, cigarettes, vapes, I don't know. You name it. Stuff you don't need. Give it a 5-year period of you doing that every day. That adds up to a lot of money. You're probably talking over 10 grand. Actually, well over 10 grand if you're talking a 5-year time frame. So it definitely does add up, but we've become this entitled generation where we think we should just be able to buy everything we want and then still have whatever we want to buy a house and whatnot. So that is something that I want to call out the younger generations for, myself included, because there's a lot of luxury items that we purchase that the previous generation went without. They were struggling to get by. They didn't pay for internet. They didn't pay for. I had dial up internet. The cheapest dial up internet used to piss me off when I was a kid. Used to bitch that my dad was a cheap ass. I'm trying to game online. He's yelling at me because it's dial up and he's trying to use the phone and I'm on the internet. But small stuff like that adds up. And then let's talk about interest rates. The interest now is comparable. I don't know, for the last couple of years is comparable because interest rates went up. But when I bought my house, interest rates were like 3%. I think I got mine just under 3%. And when I talked to my parents asking what their interest rates were, theirs were double digits at some point. So the house that they had growing up, it was a nice house. They had it custom built. But the total cost of it was like maybe $130,000. But their mortgage payment was close to the same as mine. And the house that I bought was probably double or close to double. No, it was over double what they paid for theirs. So the interest rates go a long way. And I didn't know that until I talked to the mortgage person because I went into it thinking I could only afford a house that was like 100, maybe $150,000. And then as I'm talking what the monthly mortgage would be, I was like, oh, really? Oh, I could afford like way more than that. It's because the interest rates were so low. So that's something that I don't think millennials and the younger generation realize. Those interest rates are what's going to decide if you can afford the monthly payment or not. Now, a lot of our generation also likes to hate on landlords and stuff. When you're renting, you don't have to worry about all the payments if the AC goes out, if the HVAC goes out, heating system. A bunch of stuff breaks in the house. These are costly repairs. When you're just a renter, you're not on the hook for that. That's money coming out of the landlord. And yeah, there's some slumlords out there that are shitty about getting stuff fixed, but this is something that people don't take into account. So it can be cost feasible for you to rent over owning a home because then you don't have to worry about you're only paying the mortgage or you're only paying the rent and then A lot of places, depending on where you're living, some of the utilities will be included in on your rent too, so you don't have to worry about that either. Now, if you want internet and that stuff, generally you'll have to pay for it. So, I understand from both sides. Like, yes, boomers did have it better in some cases, but in some cases not, and they were just better at being stringent and not wasting their money on luxury goods, luxury items. And we grew up in this soft, coddled society where we're told, like, these are all just basic human rights and we deserve it all. No. If I was struggling to get by, all my subscription services would be gone overnight. That's saving money. Then, all of my little luxury coffees, Starbucks, energy drinks, alcohol, nicotine, vapes, whatever, if you do any of that, that would all be cut out. Over the course of a year, that's definitely going to be in the thousands of dollars you're saving. People don't look at it because they're always like, oh, $5. Yeah, that adds up over time. Do some quick maths there, okay? I'm not a mathematician. I hate math, but it's not that hard to pull up a calculator. You're doing it 5 to 7 days a week. Add that up over 52 weeks in a year, 365 days in a year. Do some math here. It adds up. And I'm sorry, you just might have to give up some of the stuff that you like for a short period of time or a number of years until you get ahead of yourself. Now, where I'll say the boomers did fail is a lot of them were telling their kids they had to go to college. They had to go tens of thousands of dollars into debt. No, this is going to be controversial. I'm going to piss some people off. If you were a parent who told your child they needed to go to college and they needed to take student loans out and pay for it themselves, you're a bad parent. You did your child a disservice. Now, if you wanted to make them do the loans at first, make sure they did good grades and they tried hard, they didn't just fail out, and then as their graduation present, maybe you say, hey, we're going to cover it, or we're going to pay half, or we're at least going to help you pay off your student loans. That's a little understandable. So we'll just talk about my family dynamics and my situation. My parents paid for my sister to go to college. Bitched about it. It was expensive. My sister was a good student, though. Got really good grades, honor roll. Now, was it worth it? Honestly, if you ask my opinion, it wasn't worth it for them because her job has nothing to do with her degree. And this is common with a lot of people, but especially a lot of women. They go to college for dumb shit that isn't going to pay off in the workforce. They're either not going to be able to get a job in that category, or the jobs they're going to get aren't paying very well. So they're going to have a difficult time paying off those loans. So, me and my brother were basically told we were not that great of students. I was kind of a natural when it came to test taking in that for a while, but I hated homework, lazy about it. I'm at school 8 hours a day. Why should I be going home and having a couple hours worth of homework to do on top of that? So I didn't do homework very often. Now, went to private school my whole life. So had I gone to public school, I probably still would have been A to B student. Gonna hate on some of you public school kids here. You had it easy. Your grading system, holy shit. If you're failing out of public school, you're an idiot. Sorry. You're an idiot. Even with my lazy habits of not doing homework, if I was in public school, I would have been C grade at the least. So probably more B plus A. And I would consider my grades in the private school because I didn't like to do my homework. I had a couple A's, then you'd have B's and C's. If I really effed off, I might get a D, but in public school, that would have been a C or a B. So, gonna hate on you people out there in public school too, because y'all had it easy. I don't know how you're failing out of public school. Which that's all the reason I'm for defunding the Department of Education. People freaking out. What's the Department of Education done? Y'all are fucking retarded. A bunch of you can't even read at a proper level. And I'm not a reader or a math guy, but holy shit. You're failing out of public school, you dumb. So, me and my brother were basically told you get a scholarship or you join the military or you go into the trades, which is, I think, if you're a good parent, that should be what you're telling your kids. Unless your kid is a great student and wants to get involved in something that's going to be paying well outside, lawyers, doctors, engineers, something in the STEM field, then fine, go to college. You'll be making enough once you get outside to pay those loans off. But letting your kid go tens of thousands of dollars into debt, and then they're just supposed to go out there with this piece of paper and get a job that pays that well, and we wonder why we're in such a birth rate decline and people aren't having kids. Like, they got to pay off these tens of thousands of dollars of college, which I think is all part of the government's plan. They wanted to break up the nuclear family. They didn't want people having kids. And it's a money-making scheme for them, college. I'd be more open to college if you didn't have to take all these BS elective courses. I got some college. I got an associate's, but I didn't pay for it. I joined the military. So, let's go into that. I joined the military out of high school. Didn't go into debt while most of my peers were going into debt. I got a sign-on bonus, and I was working right away. And you get college credits. You can get a CCAF. That's an associate's, community college of the Air Force, or whatever branch you decide to join. You got a security clearance, which opens up doors for you to get jobs that pay pretty well. Now, caveats, not everybody can do that because you got to be somewhat fit to be in the military. You got to pass drug tests, which is hard for a lot of people in this country. So yes, there are things that you got to be kind of clean. You can't be some fuck up getting arrested and doing a bunch of shady shit. But you don't need a college degree, and you can get a pretty well-paying job, and you can get your college paid for. So if you do want to go to college, you can also be earning money, not be in debt, and get your degree. So when I'm recommending people, I tell them to join the military. You don't want to do it full time, you can join the National Guard or the reserves. Active duty, I'm not sure if they do the 4-year enlistments now or you have to do 6. Guard reserves usually like a 6-year term, but still part time. Depending on the unit you join. Now, if you're like Army Reserves or something, they actually like deploy a lot, sometimes more than active duty. But there are branches out there that you can join where you're not going to really have to deploy. You got your like 1 week in a month, maybe a couple weeks during the year that you have to do it. Some of them give sign-on bonuses. You get a military clearance, and you can go to school and get it paid for. W. Take that route. Take that route. That is what we should be telling people, or going into the trades. Because once the older generation goes, we are really going to be strapped for carpenters, electricians, plumbers, you name it, all the trades, mechanics. Hard work, long days a lot of the time, but it pays well once you get experienced. So that is what I would be telling younger people to get involved. Now, social media and all that's all the rage. So everybody wants to be a TikToker, influencer, and stuff like that. Most of you aren't going to be able to make it doing it, okay? I don't make any money doing this. Maybe eventually, but I'm just doing this on the side because I have some thoughts and I just want to put them out there. And especially with this episode, I feel like this could be good information for someone who doesn't know what to do with themselves. I've met a lot of people in the military that were struggling and they didn't join the military till later. But it's a deep, I always, you're not going to get rich with the paychecks you get, but you got good benefits. Base access, you can get stuff at the store on base, groceries for a lot cheaper than you're going to be paying out at the regular grocery store, insurance, and the pay isn't terrible. I was always perfectly fine. I didn't go into debt. I saved up a lot. Now, to get into maybe the past 5, maybe 10 years, I really didn't give much thought on investing, which is what I would recommend for people. If you got any extra money laying around, I know a lot of people are paycheck to paycheck. Economy hasn't been great, but put money aside, invest it. Don't just let it wither away due to inflation in a savings account, because that's what I was doing for a while. Like I said, I had a bunch of money saved up, and I just felt comfortable and liked seeing a number sitting there in my savings account. And once I got more libertarian, realized our system, inflation, all that money's just losing value sitting in the savings account. I started investing it. It's not without risk. So don't go investing money that you can't afford to lose. It's going to cause you to be out on the street. I'm big in crypto. I got some stocks. If you're dead set on the old way, where you just go and work somewhere 20 plus years, you're putting away in a retirement fund, 401k. I'm not going to hate on it, but I think that's outdated. And as long as you're smart with investing your money, you can do a lot better. But this is why I did an episode on Social Security. I think it's a scam. I would much rather have all that money that's getting taken out of my paychecks to Social Security and invest it myself. I don't need the government putting it aside, trying to give me something when I turn 65. Because, hey, who knows if we're going to make it to age 65? We don't know. So, not financial advice, but maybe start looking into crypto. These next couple cycles, Wall Street and all the big names are starting to get involved in Bitcoin and all that. I'm kicking myself for not having more Bitcoin back in the day when I first knew about it. But I still got into it at a decent time. I've been putting money aside slowly into stuff. There's a couple things that I'm in that, hey, maybe it doesn't shoot off, but it's my lottery ticket investment. If it gets to this number in a few years, I'll be sitting pretty. Again, not without risk. If you don't have the stomach for it, don't do it. But one of my favorite quotes is, you got to risk it to get the biscuit. And I firmly believe in that. You don't make crazy amounts of wealth and crazy gains unless you're putting stuff on the line and risking it. So that's just my personal view. But I have friends that can't stomach it. As soon as they see those numbers going down, they freak out. Those of us that are invested, we like panic sellers, all right? Everybody panic sells. That lets us scoop stuff up at a cheaper amount. That's what all the big wigs, Wall Street, and all that do. Y'all are panic selling. You don't lose until you sell. So I'll give you just a little bit of basics because I'm no expert. I'm no finance guy, but just some basics here. Let's say you invest $5,000 in a stock or a crypto and the market's going down. It's crashing. So your $5,000 is now $2,000. And a lot of these people that we call panic sellers will freak out. Oh my God, I'm losing it all. I got $2,000 left. I'm going to sell so I can at least keep that $2,000. L. Unless that company or that crypto completely goes under and you don't think it's ever going to recover, that's an L to take that out. Unless you're using it for tax purposes, because you can offset some of your taxes by selling your losses. Sorry, I got a wasp somehow got in here that I'm seeing up here. But you don't lose until you sell. You don't gain until you sell either. So let's say you're up 20,000. There's a chance that can still go down and you lose it. But if you look at it as a long-term gain, just buy it. Don't check on it for a while. Let it sit, gain value, hold, defeat inflation. That's a smart play with Bitcoin. It's the biggest, most pronounced crypto. You just put in Bitcoin and you don't care about the price going down. Eventually, within 5 years, it's definitely going to be up way more than you just keeping it in a savings account. So, again, not financial advice, but there are some big gains to be had for you youngsters out there, millennials, Gen Z, if you got extra cash laying around and a bull market comes, which I do believe some pumps are coming. There's a few things I'm watching to dip a little more, and then I'm buying. You buy when the market's bleeding, when it's red. And the common normie sees red and bleeding, they all freak out. And no, I want no part of it. All the smart people, that's when they're buying. They're accumulating. Now, you might have to wait a couple years. Crypto typically goes in 4-year cycles. So, yeah, there was some stuff I bought back in 2020, 2021. A lot of it was looking dead, in the red. Bought it at its cheapest. Now, as the market goes up and it recovers, I got it super cheap. I'm hoping for blast off. Again, not financial advice, but this is just some basics. The smart people and the big money people, they're buying when you're panicking. You buy when the market's down, you hold on, and you profit once the market recovers. That's why everyone's freaking out about the tariffs, stock market. I was over here wishing, damn it, I wish I had more money to be buying. I want to buy right now. Everything's down. I want to buy more. Everyone's freaking out. So, those are some things you can maybe use to your advantage. Just sitting in a savings account's a waste of time. Boomers, if you were telling your kids they needed to go to college and they had to pay for the student loans themselves, you did them a disservice. Tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt when they could have just done something else or joined the military. You get your school paid for even if you just did one enlistment. You could have went in, did an enlistment 4 to 6 years, got out, had your degree paid for. That's the smart play. Go into the trades. That's the smart play. And then over time, wealth takes time. Takes time to build up. So you're not going to be rich quick in most cases. Do some people get lucky? Yeah, sure. So I think I pretty much hit on everything. Millennials, I get some of your complaints about boomers, but let's hope the Fed cut interest rates and houses will be more, even if the total price doesn't go down, the monthly payments are more affordable once the interest rates are lower. And you might be surprised what you can afford. So if the interest rates get cut, just do your due diligence, go talk to a good mortgage lender, and they should be able to talk you through what the monthly payments would be given the current interest rate. Now, 6 to 8%, Yeah, it's gonna be so let me tell you, I think I got mine just under 3%. If I were to buy my house today, my payment would be probably, I think it was like $700 more per month than it is currently. So that goes to show you what difference the interest rates can make. If the interest rates get back below 5, 4, 3% range, you should really be looking into seeing if you can get a mortgage. And we'll see what the top prices for houses are. But those payments are a lot less when the interest rates are lower. I don't think a lot of people understand that because that's their main criticism on boomers. Oh, your house didn't cost that much. Yeah, their interest rates were a lot higher. Now, again, you could make those complaints now with the interest rates higher, but initially, when a lot of millennials that I knew were complaining about this, our interest rates were 3% or lower. Boomers were over here like, man, I wish it was that when I bought my house. So you could have got way more of a house than the boomers had since the interest rates were so low. So, something to keep in mind, just don't look at the price of the house itself. Your monthly payment is going to be based on interest rates. Oh, this is another thing I was going to talk about. I'm glad I remember this because you might also need to look into moving somewhere that's more cost effective. So, again, we'll talk about my own circumstances and people I knew. Everybody that needs to live in the city because it's close to all the places they like to go, but they're paying for a studio apartment, and it's probably way more now. Let me give you numbers from when I was talking about. So back in 2013 to 2016-ish, I was in a small town, Midwest, two-bedroom apartment, newly remodeled, but two-bedroom apartment, nothing fancy, but it was nice enough. Kitchen, good space, washer dryer hookups. I was paying $450 a month. Had a roommate for a little bit, 225 per month in rent. Wasn't in the ghetto because we're in rural Midwestern town. Like if you're in a big city and you're paying that much, yeah, you're going to worry about getting robbed, having your cars broke into. Another reason not to live in the cities. So, people like to complain that they can't afford rent, but they're living in a expensive city. At the same time, I was paying $450 a month for a good, spacious two-bedroom apartment, good area, not getting robbed or anything. New people that had little tiny studio apartments where the kitchen, the bedroom, all in the same room. They were paying over $1,000. I want to say closer to 1,500 at the time. So you're talking like triple what I was paying. Come on now. Be smart about it, people. Move. Move outside the cities. Maybe you'll have to drive 30 to 45 minutes to work. But in most situations, these people weren't even working jobs that paid like a bunch that they had to live in a city. They could have lived in a small town and got a waitress job, got a hostess job, got a bartending job, gas station job, or they could have commuted a little more to work at a bar or something that was in a little bit bigger town or city, but commuted back home and had at least half price rent. So there's a lot of stuff people don't think about. Again, entitled, no, I should be able to live in the main city close to all the bars and clubs I like to go to. No, no, tough it out. I live an hour away from a major city. Still plenty around. I'm close enough if I want to make a day trip to go see something. Don't have to worry about crime as much. Don't really have to worry about, there's crime everywhere, but I haven't had to worry about crime at all where I'm currently living. And I come from St. Louis, where you always had to worry about crime. So that was the last point I wanted to hit on. Cost of living where you're living. Yeah, you might have, if you need to move, it might be a costly sum to rent a moving truck and that initially, but it's going to be worth it over time. Quit paying thousands of dollars for these tiny little studio apartments that are like 500 square feet or less. Not worth it. Unless you're making really good money to live there, not worth it at all. Most of the people I knew who were complaining were working jobs you could get anywhere. So, with that, we're just going to end it with a little video. It's talking about crypto and investing. And we're just going to end with this. Don't let your money work for you. Don't let your money sit away, wasting away in a savings account. I get it. Some people don't got the spare money right now. Some people are living paycheck to paycheck. Be smart about it, though. There are ways you can stop living paycheck to paycheck. Cut back on your luxury items for, a year, maybe a couple years. You don't need your expensive ass Starbucks. You don't need your energy drinks. And I'm guilty of that. You don't need your alcohol. You don't need your cigarettes. You don't need your million subscription services. Get outside in the real world. Go exercise. Instead of sitting in Netflix and chilling. So, I'm going to play this video. Maybe give you a little motivation to let your money work for you.
What do you do with the Bitcoin besides it just gather value?
Real estate developers in New York City, they're not buying the real estate because they want to live in it.
But like most of the people who are buying assets at some point want to sell the assets at a profit.
People we call them.
All right. That was just a funny little video. Buy Bitcoin. All right. Be smart. It's a risk. But Bitcoin over the long term, Bitcoin is the conservative play in crypto that'll make you long term gains more than it just sitting in a savings account. But it's getting up there in price now. So there are more gains to be had in the altcoins right now. But Bitcoin is the safest if you're looking to get into crypto. And yeah, hey, I'm kicking myself for not owning more back in the day. But be smart, invest your money, let it work for you, cut back on the luxuries, pay attention to interest rates, and stop going tens of thousands of dollars into debt for a piece of paper. If you're really strapped, join the military, get a clearance. You could get a good paying job out of that. Or if not, you get your college paid for, and then you're at least not in debt. So we'll end her there. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe at Trad West Podcast on all platforms. Until next time, Trad West Podcast out.